Hello, my name is Anthony Sanvaljunio, and this is my Culture Chest assignment for Social Work 7004. I have five social identifiers that I chose that I think represent me pretty well, or at least how other people would perceive me. The first one is the most noticeable, I think, which is that I am a brown person. For those of you who don't know football logos, this is the Cleveland Browns logo. Um, and I think a lot of people, when they first meet me, kind of put me in this category of just being a brown person. It's not really clear if I'm black for some people. I'm certainly not white. And so I think they put me in this brown category that can encompass maybe a Latin culture. Some people think I'm Indian. And some people just don't really know where to put me or how to respond to me. In reality, inside my box, I am Filipino American. And depending on where I'm living or what communities that I'm exposed to at the time, even if I say that I'm Filipino American, I think that still elicits a brown response because not a lot of people know Filipino history or culture. And so, even though we've been here since the 1530s, I think people just kind of put me in this brown category where they're like, okay, that's something different than black or white, and I'm not really sure how to respond to that. And so that's been my experience so far, particularly when I'm living in communities where there's not a lot of Filipino people. Um, Another one that's pretty easy to identify right off the bat is that I am male bodied. I also identify as male. And so I have this the man cave, manly men doing manly things. And I think people respond to me being a man as, oh, you must be into certain things, video games and sports, and don't really want to talk about deep things. I think that would be like my male experience towards other males is like not really having anything more than a surface level conversation. My interaction with females, they also can respond to me. Being a man, a lot of the times when I try to talk to female strangers, I think there's an undertone of like, oh, you must be interested in me, and so I either have to express very clearly that I'm also into you, or just ignore you completely. And that's how people I think can respond to my me being a male. In reality, it's more nuanced than that. So I really I'm a sensitive man, and I like being a sensitive man. I like showing emotion, and I like having deep, meaningful relationships, including male relationships. I like being vulnerable and talking about meaningful things in my friendships. And I think that's hard to find, particularly in male to male relationships. Intimacy and vulnerability are not necessarily things that are built into male relationships or male to male interactions. It's more of the let's talk about manly stuff, and we don't really talk about intimacy. So a little bit of Sam and Frodo. Kudos for them for showing a intimate male to male relationship. Another thing that kind of goes along with that is I am in a romantic relationship currently with a female bodied person who identifies as female. And that's been the majority of my relationships. So I think a lot of people assume that I'm heterosexual. And that is also a little more nuanced. In fact, I identify as being part of the LGBTQ community. Particularly, I identify as queer. And I think for some people in some communities that I've lived in, I think when people are identify as being part of the LGBTQ community, they either there's certain like things that people expect you to say or things that they expect you to be interested in or to present. And I think a lot of people think that I am heterosexual, even though it's more nuanced than that. And I think that can confuse some people. I think sometimes it can make some people uncomfortable, particularly if they've known me for a while and it's just never really come up. Um, my fourth identifying factor has to do with my age cohort. So I am a millennial. And I think that there's been a very strong narrative, particularly in popular media, of us being kind of like a selfish, maybe even narcissistic generation, being lazy, being ungrateful, not understanding how to work hard. And I think that this perception is misunderstood for people who are not in my age cohort. I think that the millennial generation is very interested in the sense that we have lived in a period of time pre-internet, and we've seen like how internet has been great and how it's not been so great for us. We've seen our grandparents' pensions fail, even though they're supposed to be the safest way to invest for retirement. We've seen the 2008 housing crisis, which affected our parents and you know, their home ownership, and seen this market that was too big to fail. And we've also seen how the government handled the 2020 pandemic, and how the assumptions that uh, you know cooler heads and more will rise to the top isn't necessarily true. So I think we've seen, our generation seen, a lot of systems fail, where and instead of us being narcissistic and lazy and not caring, I actually think our age cohort does the opposite. I think that we advocate for a lot of change because we've seen a lot of stuff that, honestly, for lack of better words, sucks. And I think we're a generation that is reevaluating what it means to work in the workplace, what that looks like, what work-life balance looks like, what employee rights look like, and just a lot of things. So I think instead of I think for the outsider of the millennial generation, it can look like we're very selfish and ungrateful, and really what we're trying to do is just change things so that they're better. Has been my experience. The last identifying factor that I have has to do with my socioeconomic status. I grew up low income and have always been low income, even when I've had careers. Even in my higher paying careers, I was living in the Bay Area, California, so I was still considered under the poverty limit, even though I was making more money than people would make in other parts of the country. And so I think growing up low income, particularly in intersecting with my dark skin and male presence, I think people can perceive me as dangerous. And for me, that I'm just poor, like I'm just grew up poor, and but I think depending on where I am and who I'm talking to, that could be perceived as a negative and can be perceived as danger. And just for as a visual representation, I have kind of this outfit that I wear. This is part of my wardrobe. But, if I was wearing contacts and I was, just picked different stuff out of my wardrobe, I could easily look like this. Or if I wear a different jacket, um, you know, this is what I look like. And so I think people can definitely, my experience is that people respond to me differently depending on what I look like that day. And it doesn't necessarily matter what I've accomplished or who I am as a person, because if I look like this as opposed to the person from the beginning of the video, I get very different reactions. And so I can kind of tell what kind of day I'm going to have depending on if I decide to dress like this, which is comfortable for me, or my other outfit, which is also comfortable for me. So, yeah, so those are my 5 identifying factors. Um, you know, clearly I'm a dark skinned male. I think people think I'm heterosexual, but in reality, my sexuality is more nuanced than that. Part of the millennial generation, that's my age cohort. And finally, I identify with being, growing up low income, and having always been low income. And that comes with its own set of experiences. All right, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you have a good day.